Dr. Ilara Mune lived in the year 2419. She was a historian, but of a special kind, you know. Her work involved mines, not just old papers. She recovered lost memories from delicate crystals. These crystals held fragments of lives, echoes of thoughts. People trusted her with these fragile remnants. Ilara was quiet, really dedicated. She believed in the importance of every story, every faded whisper of the past. Her laboratory was a place of silence and concentration, high in the floating city of Ethelberg. She sought truth in the patterns of forgotten data. Her skill was rare, and corrupted memory crystals were common. Accidents, data decay, or simple age could damage them. Ilara coaxed the minds back, piecing together broken narratives. It was like listening to ghosts, she sometimes thought. Ghosts in the machine. She handled each crystal with immense care. The information within was often personal, deeply private. She felt a great responsibility. To restore a mind was to restore a piece of humanity. It was a solemn task, a quiet art in a world of loud progress. In Ilara's time, magic was a children's story. It was a myth from a less enlightened age. Technology was the truth. Technology served humans in every way. It built their cities in the sky. It fed them. It healed them. It thought for them with cool, logical AI. Ilara herself was a woman of science. She believed in evidence, in the things she could measure and understand. The universe to her was a complex machine. Its workings could be known, eventually, with enough study and reason. She spent most of her days alone. Her laboratory was her sanctuary. The soft hum of its advanced equipment was her constant companion. She preferred the quiet hum to the noise of the city. Here she could think, and here she could work undisturbed. The city outside was a marvel of engineering. But inside her lab, Ilara touched something older. She touched the essence of human experience. She wove together the threads of memory. She was a guardian of forgotten souls, even if she only thought of them as complex data sets. Ethelberg floated high above the clouds. It was one of many such cities, islands in the sky. Great engines kept them aloft, moving slowly, silently through the upper atmosphere. Below them, the earth lay in ruin, a scarred and broken world. The reasons for its state were old history. Now humanity lived apart from it. They had built new homes among the stars, or rather just below them. These cities were bright, clean and orderly. Life was managed, controlled and safe. The view from Ethelberg was always the same, a vast expanse of white clouds, sometimes a glimpse of the desolate land far below. It was a constant, silent reminder, a reminder of what they had lost or perhaps what they had escaped. The air in the sky cities was filtered, the water was recycled, food was grown in hydroponic towers. Nature, as it once was, existed only in simulations or protected biodomes. The connection to the old Earth was severed. Most people rarely thought of the ground. It was a place of shadows and forgotten dangers. Technology was the lifeblood of these aerial havens. AI assistants managed daily routines. Automated vehicles moved silently along designated pathways. Information flowed constantly, a digital river connecting every citizen. Comfort was paramount. Efficiency was the guiding principle. There was little want, little struggle. Society was stable. It was a precisely engineered existence. Yet for some, like Ilara, there was a subtle lack. A sense of something missing from this perfect world. A longing for something less predictable. The wind that whispered around the city's towers carried no scent of soil. It did not carry the songs of wild birds. It was sterile, thin air. The perfection had a price. The cities were marvels of human ingenuity. They represented survival and a kind of triumph. But they were also cages, however gilded. They floated in isolation, both from the earth and from a deeper sense of belonging. Some nights, Ilara would look down at the distant, dark shape of the planet. She wondered about the secrets it still held. One cycle, a black market trader approached Ilara. His name was Kalen, a man who moved in shadows. He dealt in objects that were not quite legal, not quite understood. He had heard of Ilara's unique skills, not her official work with memory crystals, but her deeper interest in the truly unknown. He came to her private laboratory. He was quiet, his eyes watchful. He promised her something unique, something that defied easy explanation. He knew Ilara collected unusual data artifacts, pieces of code that no standard system could pass. He presented a small box. Inside, resting on dark velvet, was an obsidian cube. It was no bigger than her palm. Its surface was perfectly smooth, impossibly black. It seemed to drink the light around it. And etched into its faces were runes. They were unlike any writing Ilara had ever seen. They were not from any known language, ancient or modern. They pulsed with a faint internal energy that made her skin prickle. The cube felt cold to the touch, yet vibrated with a life of its own. Kalen smiled faintly, a knowing look in his eyes. Ilara took the cube to her diagnostic station. Her advanced AI, named Oracle, attempted to scan it. Oracle was one of the most sophisticated analytical engines in Ethelberg. It could decipher nearly any code, analyze any material, but the cube remained silent. The AI reported material composition unknown. Markings do not correspond to any known linguistic or symbolic system. Internal structure unreadable. The scanners found nothing. It was as if the cube was not entirely there or existed in a way technology could not grasp. The mystery deepened. Ilara's scientific curiosity was now fully engaged. Kalen watched her, his expression unreadable. "Some doors are not meant for machines," he whispered. It was not quite a warning. It sounded more like an invitation or perhaps a challenge. He charged her a significant sum, not in credits, but in rare data fragments she had archived. Ilara paid. The cube was too compelling to refuse. When Kalen left, the lab felt different. The obsidian cube sat on her workbench. It was a pool of darkness in the bright, sterile room, a silent question waiting for an answer. Ilara moved the obsidian cube to her most secure work area. This was a small, shielded room within her main laboratory. Here, no external signals could interfere. More importantly, Oracle's sensors could not easily pry. This was a personal quest now. The cube was a puzzle that mocked the advanced tools of her age. If technology could not unlock it, perhaps an older method could. A human mind, patient and persistent. She felt a thrill she had not experienced in years. It was the call of the truly unknown. She began the slow process of manual decoding. She used techniques that were almost forgotten. Comparative linguistics, pattern analysis, symbol morphology. She projected magnified images of the runes onto her screens. She drew them by hand, trying to feel their shapes, their flow. Days blurred into nights. Food was an afterthought. Sleep was a brief interruption. The city of Ethelberg hummed on around her, unaware of the ancient secret unfolding in her small lab. The cube sat before her, impassive, its secrets locked tight. The runes were unlike anything she had ever studied. They seemed to shift when she looked away. They resisted categorization. Sometimes a symbol would look like a star chart. Another time, it resembled a coiled serpent. Then, it would change again. They were not static markings. They felt alive, dynamic. They almost seemed to mock her efforts. Her scientific training urged her to find a logical structure. But the runes defied logic. They hinted at a different kind of order, a different way of understanding. Frustration began to build. She was a master of data, a decoder of complex systems. Yet this small, dark object resisted her completely. But alongside the frustration, a strange fascination grew. It was an obsession. She felt a connection to the cube, an almost magnetic pull. Sometimes, when the lab was completely silent, she thought she could hear a faint hum, a whisper just below the threshold of hearing. Or perhaps it was only the sound of her own tired mind, straining to find meaning in the darkness. Section 5, Echoes in Slumber. Then the dreams began. They started subtly as fragments of strange images, but soon they grew more intense. They were vivid, all-consuming. Ilara found herself walking in landscapes she did not recognize. Ancient forests, starlit deserts, cities made of light and shadow. These were not the sterile environments of Ethelberg. They were wild, untamed, and filled with a potent energy. The dreams were unsettling, yet also beautiful in a way that disturbed her rational mind. She was a scientist, not a mystic. In these dreams, She heard voices. They spoke in languages she had never learned, yet somehow she understood parts of what they said. There were chants, solemn and powerful. There were laments for lost worlds, for forgotten gods. There were stories of creation and destruction. The voices were ancient. They carried the weight of millennia. They whispered secrets of the universe, of forces that lay hidden beneath the surface of reality. Ilara listened, a captive audience in her own sleep. These were not ordinary dreams. They did not feel like products of her own subconscious. They felt like memories, but not her memories. They were too old, too vast. It was as if the cube was leaking its contents into her mind while she slept, or perhaps it was pulling her into its own world. The barrier between her analytical self and this new, strange input was thinning. She was an archivist of data, but now she was becoming an archive herself, filled with echoes from an impossible past. She would wake up exhausted each morning. The lab felt cold. The languages from her dreams resonated in her head. She recognized their cadences, their structures. They were connected to the runes on the cube. The symbols she struggled to decipher by day, she heard spoken by night. A terrifying, exhilarating connection was forming. The cube was not just an object, it was a conduit, and it was slowly, surely, changing her. Section 6. The Seventh Night's Gift. It was the seventh night since the dreams began. Ilara sat before the obsidian cube. Her lab was dim, lit only by the soft glow of her analysis screen. She was weary. Her body ached for rest, but her mind was fiercely alert, honed by days of relentless effort and nights of strange visions. She had traced a particular sequence of runes again and again. They seemed to hold a key. A pattern was emerging, not from logic but from an intuition born of the dreams. Suddenly something clicked, not a sound in the lab but a shift in her understanding. A rune she had stared at for hours revealed a new meaning. It connected to another and another. A sequence locked into place in her mind. At that exact moment, the cube on her workbench pulsed with a soft internal light. A low hum filled the room, a sound that was both heard and felt. It resonated deep within her bones. The air grew thick with an unseen energy. Ilara held her breath, watching. Fine cracks spider-webbed across the obsidian surface. They glowed with an intense white light. Then, with a sound like distant chimes, the cube fractured. It did not shatter, it opened. Like a flower blooming in fast motion, the dark shell fell away in pieces. From its heart a light blazed forth, temporarily blinding Ilara. When her vision cleared, she saw it. Resting where the cube had been was a book. Its cover seemed to be made of bound starlight. Its pages were thin like dragonhide and shimmered with faint colours. A voice spoke. It was not in her lab nor in her mind. It was everywhere. It was genderless, ageless and vast. You have sought the knowledge, it resonated. You have listened to the echoes. You are the Archivist. The book lay open before her. It was called the Codex of Echoes. It pulsed with a gentle warmth. Ilara reached out a trembling hand. The rational world she had known, the world of pure technology and logical explanations, was gone. Something ancient and powerful had awakened. Section 7. A Mind Remade. Ilara's mind, trained for years in the rigours of science, struggled to comprehend a book made of starlight and dragonhide. A voice that spoke from nowhere and everywhere. This was not possible. It defied every known law of physics, every principle of her understanding. Yet the Codex of Echoes was undeniably real. It lay before her, radiating a soft light and an immense ancient power. Her entire worldview, built on logic and tangible proof, began to crumble. A new reality was imposing itself upon her. She reached out and touched the cover of the Codex. As her fingers made contact, a shockwave of sensation coursed through her. It was not unpleasant, it was a flood. Knowledge, raw and unfiltered, poured into her. Not data, not information as she knew it. These were essences, spells she recognized with a jolt, the lives of beings she could not imagine. Histories of worlds that had risen and fallen long before humanity had even looked to the stars. Her mind stretched, expanded, trying to absorb the impossible influx. A strange thing happened then. The lights in her laboratory flickered violently. Her AI assistant, Oracle, which had been silently monitoring, let out a burst of static and then went completely silent. The diagnostic screens went dark. Her data slate, lying nearby, sparked and died. It seemed that her very presence, now charged with the energy of the Codex, was disruptive to the delicate technology that surrounded her. The tools she had relied on her entire life were failing in the face of this ancient power. Her thoughts themselves began to change. The rigid pathways of logic softened. Intuition, long suppressed in favor of empirical evidence, rose to the surface. She felt connections between things she had never considered before. A new kind of understanding bloomed within her. It was not the understanding of a scientist dissecting a specimen. It was the understanding of a participant, a part of a larger living universe. She felt a power stirring within her, a power she did not yet comprehend but could sense was now a part of her. Section 8. The Codex and its Question. She began to read the Codex of Echoes, or rather it read itself to her. The words, the symbols, flowed directly into her consciousness. They were not just letters on a page, they were living concepts. She learned of ancient magic, of the fundamental forces that wove the fabric of existence. She learned of cosmic laws that governed not just planets and stars, but thoughts and dreams. The universe was far stranger, far more wondrous, and far more dangerous than she had ever imagined. The knowledge was overwhelming, yet exhilarating. One afternoon, experimenting, she whispered a single word from the Codex. It was a word of unbinding. Across the lab, a heavy datapad, previously inert, lifted from the table. It floated gently in the air, held by an unseen force. She focused, and it moved to her command. Gravity itself seemed to bend to her will, however slightly. The power was intoxicating. It was also terrifying. This was not technology. This was something else. Something primal, something that had slept for eons and was now awake within her. Another day she found a section on stellar harmonics. She took a stylus, not to a datapad, but to a piece of simple parchment she found. She drew a complex symbol from the Codex, focusing her intent. As she completed it, she felt a subtle tremor in the fabric of space-time. Later, news reports trickled in from the deep space observatories. A rogue comet, on a collision course with a remote mining outpost, had inexplicably altered its trajectory. Ilara knew. The connection was undeniable. The power she now wielded was immense. It had cosmic reach. But the Codex was not just a source of power and knowledge. It came with a burden, a purpose. It presented her with a choice. The voice of the Archivist, the one that had spoken when the cube opened, now echoed in her mind from the pages of the book. The Archivist must choose, it stated, preserve the past in all its faded glory and sorrow, or rebuild the future, using the knowledge to shape what is to come. The weight of this decision settled upon Ilara. It was a choice that would define her, and perhaps much more. Section 9. The universe awakens to preserve. That was one path. It meant becoming a silent guardian. She would keep the echoes of lost worlds, the spells of forgotten ages, safe within the Codex and within herself. She would be a living library of all that had been. The universe would continue on its current path, oblivious to the wonders and terrors she now knew. It was a safe choice, perhaps, a passive role, a lonely vigil, but it felt incomplete. It felt like a denial of the power that now coursed through her veins. To rebuild, that was the other path offered. It meant using the immense power of the Codex to actively shape the future, to write new realities, to correct the mistakes of the past, perhaps, or to make new ones on a grander scale. This path was filled with peril. Such power could corrupt, it could lead to tyranny, even with the best intentions. Who was she to decide what the future should be? The responsibility was too great, too terrifying. She was a historian, not a god. Ilara looked out from her laboratory window. She saw the sterile beauty of Athelberg. She saw the distant, scarred earth below. Neither felt right. One was a gilded cage, the other a tomb. A third option began to form in her mind. Not to simply keep the past locked away, not to impose a new future by force, but something else. Something that combined knowledge with action, wisdom with change. She found the word in the Codex, a word that resonated with her deepest being. Awaken. She spoke the word aloud. awaken. As the sound left her lips, the codex in her hands blazed with an almost unbearable light. A wave of energy pulsed outwards from her, from the book. It swept through Ethelberg, through the sky, down to the sleeping earth and out into the cosmos. The universe itself seemed to shiver, to take a breath. In that moment, Dr. Ilara Mune, the historian, ceased to be. Ilara, the Archivist, the first techmancer, had been born. The age of pure technology was ending. A new age of magic and machine intertwined was dawning.